Welcome. I'm Yvonne Brooks at McNally Jackson Books, and we are thrilled tonight to help launch Lucky Turtle by Bill Roorbach. And if you're here, you probably have heard of this book. You've probably heard of this author, but let me read a short introduction of some of his great accomplishments. Bill Roorbach is the author of 5 previous books of fiction, including The Girl of the Lake, the Kirkus Prize finalist, The Remedy for Love, the bestseller Life Among Giants, and the Flannery O'Connor Award-winning collection Big Bend. His memoir, Nature, Temple Stream, won the Maine Literary Award in nonfiction. Roorbach has received fellowships from the Civitella Ranieri Foundation and the National Endowment for the Arts. He held the William H.P. Leaf Jenks Chair in Contemporary American Letters at the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Mass. His craft book, Writing Life Stories, has been in print for 25 years. His writing has appeared in Harper's, the New York Times Magazine, The Atlantic, Plowshares, Granta, Ecotone, New York Magazine, and other publications. He lives in Maine with his family. And our interlocutor for the evening, Jonathan Evison. Hi, Jonathan.
Hi.
Is the author. Hi. Is the author of the novels All About, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading my writing, All About Lulu, West of Here, The Revised Fundamentals of Caregiving, This Is Your Life, Harriet Chance, Lawn Boy, and Legends of the North Cascades. He lives with his wife and family in Washington State. Great. Well, welcome. I'm going to let Jonathan take it away. He's going to be our interlocutor for the evening, and then later I'm sure he'll open up for questions. And we're thrilled to have you here.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Nice to see some familiar faces out there. Bill and I have a lot of common acquaintances, it seems, as well. Thanks to our host, McNally Jackson, actually a number of hosts on this one. Also Book Passage, Books and Books in Miami, King's English in Salt Lake City, and University Bookstore in my hometown, Seattle, Washington. It's really a pleasure for me to be here to launch Bill's wonderful book, Lucky Turtle. I just want to say that Bill and I right now are coming to you from opposite ends of the country. Bill is in Maine. I am in the northwest corner of Washington. But Bill has always felt like a kindred spirit to me. I love his work. I loved Lucky Turtle. I love Life Among Giants. I appreciate he writes with a lot of heart, a lot of soul, a lot of pathos. I love the temperament of his prose. He's just a good all around dude. So I'm thrilled that he chose me to join him here to launch Lucky Turtle, which I just really enjoyed the heck out of.
Thanks.
Cheers. Congratulations, buddy.
Cheers, everyone. I just have water for now. Thank you, Johnny. Thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And it is fun to be thousands of miles apart and be able to do this. It's kind of the benefit of Zoom, the hidden benefit of the horrors of the pandemic is this way we can get together with people from near and far. I see a friend of mine who's in India on here, and a friend from Japan's going to try to join. They couldn't do that if we were in New York or Salt Lake City or San Francisco or Miami or Seattle. So could everyone mute your mics? Because I hear some, dogs talking and things like that. And anyway, Johnny, thank you. It's really generous.
My pleasure. You've done the same for me over the years. I don't want to, let's start right at the beginning with this book. I don't really want to put you on the spot but I think I'd rather have you give a little synopsis instead of me, because I'm 6 months out. And while the spirit of it is still there vividly, I'm going to not maybe remember a few characters' names and so forth. So give us a little synopsis.
Well, it's about a young woman, Cindra Zoeller, who gets in trouble in high school in Massachusetts. And she gets sent to a reform camp in Montana. And there she meets...
Renee, I'm going to do over here.
Mike's muted. That's Renee Townsend we're hearing. So if Renee, if you could mute your mic, that'd be really helpful. Thank you. Anyway, sorry about that. So she at camp, she meets this guy named Lucky, and then she manages to just keep getting in trouble, and eventually she and Lucky have to more or less escape from the camp, and they go to the wilderness, and there they live in an idyll until, of course, trouble finds them again. That's the basics. Everything else is a spoiler, but I guess we'll have a few spoilers as we go.
Probably will. Hopefully I'm not responsible for any of them. This is really fun for me because I associate you so strongly with Maine, but this is so much a love letter to Montana. And so let's start at the very beginning of the book before the first chapter. This was dedicated to your Uncle Bill. Who is Uncle Bill?
Uncle Bill's my mother's little brother. And when I was in high school, in Connecticut, I wasn't a hellion or anything, but I just, my mother felt like I was not focused and needed some directions. So she sent me out to Helena, Montana to stay with my Uncle Bill, Bill Burkhart, who's a minister out there. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to be no fun. But it turned out he's this great, he's such a sweetie for one thing, and kind of a saint, you know. He saw his ministry as the whole town. At the time, they didn't call people homeless, but there were character. They call them hobos and bums, and there's characters downtown, and he would go out to the parks and just talk with everyone. Everyone knew him, and his way of trying to straighten me out was to have me. He sort of assigned me to this guy named Kills the Sky, and Kills was he was a cool guy, and I couldn't influence him. I mean, he dominated me in so many ways, but he was he was a bad boy, in fact, and he ended very badly. He ended up being beaten to death in a bar fight, which my brother, when he was like 30, which my uncle told me about kind of offhand in a letter. We used to write letters back and forth because he didn't realize how close we'd gotten, I think. But you know, while we were teenagers, so we were both 16. He had an apartment in town that my uncle had arranged for him and a couple of other people. He had a girlfriend. They had a baby. He was 16 with a baby. And we talked about going to the wilderness, how we would go to the wilderness and we would forge a life, you know. And my uncle thought it was kind of funny and also challenging to him, who was a great wilderness guy, great outdoorsman, fisherman, hunter, all those things. So one day he takes us out, he takes us out to the Bob Marshall Wilderness, and he says, I'm going to drop you over here by the edge of the Crow Reservation, and I'll pick you up in 2 weeks at such and such. And I don't know what he thought would happen to us. There were no cell phones. We didn't even have.
So you're totally unprepared for this. No fortifications, no supplies,
no sleeping bags. No, he gave us fish hooks and some line. We didn't have any poles, and that's really all we had. And those old canteens with the canvas jackets, you know, that's all we had. And whatever we were wearing, and off we went. And we did fine. It was so much fun. At first we were nervous, but he was never nervous because he really knew how to eat out of the woods, and I knew how to fish. So we managed to take care of each other pretty well. He knew how to make shelters wherever, and of course it's Montana, high summer, so it was warm enough, and it was you know, no bugs, starry nights, and we built big fires and just philosophized. The guy was a kind of a pocket philosopher. As I said, you know, but in the woods, he was one kind of guy, and he was like a Socrates. But in town, he was always in trouble. He was, you know, other. He would be chased around town. He'd be beaten up a lot. He'd start a lot of trouble too. He was no angel. So I wanted to, with the book, I wanted to I don't know what I wanted to do exactly. I didn't really do it on purpose. He appeared as a character, much as Cindra did. I put them together so it could be a romantic story, and off they went. And what happened was I ended up redeeming Kills in this guy who is all saint mostly, and not the bad, not the no doubt guy suffering with mental illness after a lot of severe abuse. But Lucky's a guy who, despite severe abuse and a bizarre childhood, let's say, pulls himself out of it and is the most gentle possible person.
Yeah,
So
he's
that,
a wonderful character. Just has that sort of silent but affirming presence, not the sort of unnerving. Sometimes people are unnervingly silent, like, is this guy ever going to talk?
yeah.
But I just, even on the page, and that's a hard thing to bring to life on the page, but you did a really wonderful job of it. Part of that is just the way he talks, how he talks. But you know, as you talk about this, I really see where the book came from now, you know, because like I said before, I think of you as being from Maine, this Northeastern guy, and the book was such a revelation for me in that way, like all this Montana wilderness. And you were 13 when your uncle dropped you off there?
No, we were probably 16 at that point, possibly 15. I may have been 15 and turned 16 that summer.
So about Cindra's age. She's 16 in the book, I believe, right?
That's right, yeah. And that was the best.
Yeah.
I went 3 summers. So the first was the young summer. I found love and all that. And then the next summer I found Kills This Guy. And then the summer after that, he had drifted into some very, very terrifying life stuff. And I stayed away from him that last summer when I was 17. And then later I told you about his demise, but that brought me closer to my uncle too. And he had a lot of other projects for me. But he would do this amazing thing where he and I would go out to go fishing, and we'd drive off into the wilderness in his Land Rover, and he'd say, you know what? If we got stuck in the mud, and it's kind of wet out here, if we got stuck in the mud, I wouldn't be able to preach tomorrow. But you know, the assistant minister really needs some practice. Fully purposefully got us deeply stuck in the mud. Even with the winch, we couldn't get the thing out. And so we just went up for several days fishing and feeding ourselves, really fabulous. And again, another philosopher, but he's more like the character Clay Marvelette in the story, who is a rancher of very sort of stoical demeanor, who yet has really big, strong ideas and a big heart, you know, and really takes care of them. So my experiences drifted into the book sort of ineluctably, but not exactly, not by any means. You know, none of what happens in the book really happened to me, luckily, but some of the soul of it did happen to me. Yeah, Montana, it's a beauty, it's a soul spot for me because of the age I was.
I love it very much too. I lived in Missoula for only a summer. I was dating a single mom. It wasn't my baby, and I fell in love with her, and I was playing daddy for about 4 or 5 months there, and I was going to open a little pasta bar, but then she decided to marry the father one day, and I was just negotiating the lease for this little restaurant, and I was heartbroken, but I've been back 10 or 15 times. And I just love it there. I want to say something to all of you here, which is at some point we're going to have Bill read. We'll find a juncture to make that happen. But rather than opening this up, because we've got a lot of people here, rather than opening this up for questions at the end, I want to invite you guys to go ahead and put questions in the chat at any time, and I'll sort of monitor that, because the way these things go, Bill might be talking about something of interest you want him to extrapolate on or something like that. So just go ahead and interject those questions at any time. We welcome them. I strongly encourage them. Help me with my workload here, and I will manage the chat. Yeah, so please just write those in the chat and I'll deal with that. So you did such a lovely job writing Cindra's teenage point of view, and this is something I've had experience with as well, but that's often mystifying to readers. Like, how did you do that? I mean, here you're a 50 something guy, let's call you, you're writing a 16-year-old girl. What would tell us about that experience?
Well, I hate to tell you, but I'm almost 70.
I
And
know, I was being polite.
oh, you're nice. Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about
I'm the
that.
50 something.
I forgot I'm supposed to hide that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. But I had a friend who told me, a gay friend who told me, don't lie downward because people will go, oh, he looks terrible for 58. If you lie upward, say you're 90, they'll go, my God, he looks good. So just remember that. Anyway, the question, is that the Oval Office that you're sitting in?
Yeah. I have, I'm actually in my neighbor's house. So I hang a green screen here. So, I don't want to, and, I have a little facility here so this is my cell. I got my own sort of book backgrounds. I got
I love it. The hotel hallway. That's good.
Yeah. If I was to take this off, we would just have, I'd be like at Fenway Park. There's just a green screen behind me. Thank God for Bob. He lets me, my internet's so bad up here on the mountain that I have to walk down the hill. It was so rainy today that I drove down the hill and hang my green screen in his living room, use his refrigerator for my beer. He's like sitting over here, like watching the TV very quietly. He lets me do this like 5 times a week. He's so nice. I can't get internet though. I tried the Elon Musk satellite thing. It doesn't work. The cable doesn't run within a quarter mile of my house. There's just no, and I'm really happy for that until it's book tour time or whatever.
Until it's book tour time. And well, the question is writing
Cindra. I mean, you're at opposite ends of the human experience here. A teenage girl and as we now know, 70-something dude.
Just not quite 70. No, I'm 90. I know I'm 90. Don't forget I'm 90. I look great for 90. I'm reading Small World. I had the same question and observation for you. I was admiring you made so many characters across an enormous spectrum of humanity, but also of time. I mean, you had eras with different attitudes, and it was brilliant. And I think that's our job, right? To take our own humanity and believe that humans, being humans, are accessible to us, and then you have to add some layers of empathy and compassion, and even for the bad guys, you have to really understand what their motivations are and stuff. And that's my favorite part of making characters, I think.
Me too. It's there's got to be, you're finding something universal about the character and the human experiment or the human experience, and the rest of it is, I don't know. I don't find it as hard as people think, because I wrote an 80-year-old woman, and I've yet to hear from an 80-year-old woman that I didn't nail it. But it's just about, having some context, understanding what it helps to have an 80-year-old mom too, who can help educate. It always helps to have people help you vet that and tell you when you're off guard. We have a question from our mutual friend, Cheryl McKeon here, that's right along lines. It says, Bill, as you wrote Lucky, Clay, and the other characters' dialogue, did you speak out loud? And here's one. She adds, they're all very credible.
Very
Lucky.
I hope to hear that word enter the language, so everyone pronounce it very from now on. So once you read the book, you'll understand what the joke is. But it's a very good joke. Cheryl, it makes me smile and very happy, because that's how Lucky talks.
You say the dialogue out loud. It's pretty.
Yes, yeah. I read. I. That's how I start each day writing. If I'm working at my best, is I'll start by reading what I wrote yesterday or the last few days. Just read it out loud, and you catch so much. You hear so much of how people sound, and I've always done that to the point where my daughter, who may be on this Zoom, but my daughter who would say things like, when she was little, Daddy, who are you talking to out there? And I'd be like, oh, I'm writing, So yes, Cheryl, I hear all of it. I try to. And then, as far as writing a woman's point of view, did have friends read it, and here and there, not a lot of here and there, they would point out stuff that didn't seem credible, or that they didn't feel like would be a woman's way of thinking about something. And I would hear that and then go back to it. And, I think they were almost always right, so it's super helpful because, I am who I am, right? And I am in some ways stuck in my own vision of the world. So to get friends and other writers and some strangers reading it and giving you ideas is super helpful.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is the great reward of writing fiction, is this exercise in empathy, this opportunity to accrue experience that feels lived without ever having lived with it. And I know there are those that would tell us to just stay in our own lane. And I'm like, well, then I'm just going to have to write novels about fat, middle-aged white guys the rest of my life. And I'm just not interested. I mean, I really want to, I feel like writing fiction is the greatest empathetic tool humans have ever created. Nothing asks you to so intimately walk a mile in somebody else's shoes as a novel. And like, I think everybody should write this way. I think everybody should be forced to write out of their experience, to really try to really think it out and really try to view the world through somebody else's viewpoint. Like, anything. Just take anything. It's just like walking through a parking garage at night. How does that change when you're a woman? Anything. Just pick something. Everything is different for everybody. And yeah, we're always sort of seeking to try to find this sort of universal center of the character, but everybody's experience is so different. And it kills me when like people will tell me my characters are losers because I write about people that get knocked around a little bit by life and things like that. But whenever somebody calls my characters losers, I'm like, screw you. My people are trying, you just don't understand their experience. You're judging their experience from your context. Like, why does this guy keep losing his job? Why does this guy smoke cigarettes if he's broke? Why does it, that just shows me that people need to get outside their own.
But that's what I love about your novels, is that you make me fall in love with people I might not have even noticed in life, So I appreciate that about what you're doing and what we're all doing too. Anyway, it's like, it's also easy to make mistakes and get it wrong. So I love hearing when people think I got it wrong and see if I can fix it before today, which is pub day, and I forgot who said it, but they said, novels never finished. You just publish it and say, okay, I give up.
Yeah, well, I'm to the point where I just I can't read them after they're published. And unless I'm forced to, in like a situation like this where you're doing an event, and even then I've got a pen with me, man, and I will stop mid-reading and scratch. So it's futile. I can't change it, but like at least the next time I have to read it out loud, this sounds better this way. So it never really ends. So I can't go back to the books. It's nice to hear other people's experiences reading them, but I just want to keep editing till forever.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hey, to the host, I'm wondering if there may be people waiting in the waiting room. I don't have any way to check, but if sometimes there's latecomers. So what, Johnny?
I got another question for you right here.
Oh, okay, great.
Bill, how long did you work on this novel, and do you know what your next one will be about?
I have worked on this a long time, and partly because I had finished a fairly advanced draft, and then I got hurt, and I had to get emergency spinal fusion on my neck, and I had some neurological deficits. It took about a year to even really remember that I was in the middle of making a novel, So when I got back to it and I really finished it, I couldn't read for longer than an hour or two a day for quite a while.
Because of the ergonomics?
Well, yeah.
The cloudiness, or?
Well, it was because the injury was that, I was cutting a tree that fell in my studio up in Farmington. with the chainsaw, just really heavy work. And I've already got wear and tear on my spine, and the disc blew up and part of it went inside my spinal column and crushed and cut the spinal column such that it took and those nerves don't heal exactly. The ones in your spinal column, the ones that go out can heal, and it takes my arm stopped working. My left arm did not work at all. It took a year to get where I could use it again normally, and it's taken another couple of years till I feel as strong as I once was. So what the effect of that was, I couldn't read for a long time, but I did slowly work my way back into the book. And I remembered I had been looking for an agent at that time. So I went through all my emails to find who I'd been writing to. I didn't remember. And so the book changed. I mean, I had to rewrite it as this sort of new, broken and repaired person. So the question is, how long did it take? It probably would have taken 3 years, but it took 5 really. And then once, Kathy Pori's my editor at Algonquin, once she got to work on it, there was a lot more work to do, which was great. She really guided me through some big shifts, structural shifts, and brought it to where it needed to be. So I think it would have been a much different book if I had published it right around the time I had meant to. The second part of the question is, am I working on something new? And the answer is yes, I am. It's just, you kind of just start trying stuff and, falling your way into a new story. And I'm not sure where that's going exactly yet, but yeah, never stop. I never stop. Right, Johnny? You got to keep going.
Yeah, no, well, sometimes you're right one and and then, you can tell your editor's not that into it right now. And then you open your big mouth and say, well, I've also started this other one. And then they say, yeah, I like that. So then you got to write a whole nother one before you can get your money. It's the vagaries. Don't get me started. I got one here from a fellow Montanan, David Abrams, a great novelist in his own right. If nobody's ever read Fobbit, one of the best Vietnam novels I've ever read. Hilarious. I could be a companion to Catch 22. So nice to have David on board asking questions here. Bill, given the influence of your memories on this book, do you think it could be set anywhere else but Montana? In other words, is this a work where the landscape is inextricably intertwined with narrative? Love, your #1 fan in Helena, Montana, David Abrams.
Live from Last Chance Gulch, it's David Abrams, also a favorite of mine, Johnny. Hi, David. Well, yeah, no. It's a character in the book. There's no way to separate the landscape from the story. The story could not happen without the landscape, and it had to be Montana. It couldn't move even as far as Idaho or someplace. It's just so endemic, and it's so ingrained in me because of those very impressionable years I happened to be there, and because of what happened to me while I was there, which was first love and this relationship with a grown-up who took me seriously, and this idea that your relationship to the world ought to be one of love and helping people and looking for people to help. And that's where he was at. Like, he didn't like preaching on Sunday mornings. He liked walking around the town looking for people in trouble and figuring out how to straighten out, to give them what they needed,
That is so the way it should be. My old man was a minister, and he just loved the sound of his voice. Yeah, so was my grandfather, man. Yeah, I got plenty of it. They like the sound of their own voice. It wasn't about that at all. It was very much about being up at the pulpit, and so that kind of soured me to the whole thing.
It's a performance thing too.
I want to have you read, because I know we're halfway through the event, and I don't want to lose track of that. I want these people to hear some of the book, because we're kind of talking around the book a little bit. I want them to get a little sense of the book and the spirit of it. Is this a good time for you?
Okay, this will be my very first reading from it, I think. So I haven't even picked out what to read. So maybe I'll just start at with the opening, which is very brief, and just give you a sense of how it opens. And then Yeah, I think that's what I should do, to avoid spoilers, because I haven't really planned it, so I don't want to just open it up and like be like, oh gosh, I just ruined the ending, But so here's the beginning. It does say for my Uncle Bill, and every time I see that, I just get such a pang because he died hard. He ended up with Alzheimer's, and some terrible things happened because of that dementia. The last thing that happened was that he stopped talking for 2 years. He didn't say a word. This preacher, who was in love with his own voice, I'm certain of it. My grandfather was a minister too, Johnny, and both of my uncles and one of my aunts. So we come from similar stock. Anyway, so his sisters, who at the time were age 80 and 90, decided that rather than just, and they live far away, rather than just hear about his death, they went to go see him. They picked him up at the Alzheimer's care unit, put him in the car, took him to Glacier National Park, drove through, going to the Sun Road, and these women, my aunts, started singing hymns for the beauty of the earth, that one. And he, in the back seat of the car, having not said a single syllable, started singing. And he had a beautiful voice. And they sang the harmonies they used to sing when they were kids. They sang for 2 days. They drove around Glacier National Park and sang and sang and sang. And that's the last words he ever said. I think he died the following week. So these beautiful women did that. My mom had already passed away at that point. But there's many more stories about them. Anyway, that's back to David's question, like, yeah, Montana, are you kidding me? For sure, yeah.
I don't think I've ever read a book about Montana where Montana wasn't a character, you know what I mean? I mean, it's just, it's just Montana's state of mind, I guess.
And the truth is, wherever your story's set, the place ought to be a character, and in the best.
It should be, but I mean, no place can I think of quite as much as Montana is that as true. I mean, maybe Texas or something, but.
I'm with you. I remember Ralph Beer saying, like, I read that Montana book that guy wrote, and I thought, no way, there's no wind. Okay, here's chapter 1. It's very short, very short. I am Cindra Zoeller. I was born in 1980 in Watertown, Massachusetts, outside Boston. I wrote a report in 5th grade, so I know Massachusetts is an Algonquian name meaning big little hills. I grew up there sledding the biggest of the little hills and skating on mill ponds and swimming in the lakes and rivers and the ocean with the other kids, though rarely with my sister, who was much older and mocked my love of the great outdoors, sat home reading. And I will never mention her again. I adored my father, who was a cabinet maker, or when business was bad, a roofer. He hated roofing. My mother and I did not get along. She broke my ankle once by accident, but in a rage, and did not take me to the doctor. And then when I was 16, I got in trouble. There, that was fast. My actual life begins with meeting Lucky, is why I'm hurrying. So I think that launches it pretty well. She's gonna go meet Lucky, and she'll meet him the same time you do, reader, and it will be very, very cool.
Very. So the thing you're working on now, how? I know you don't probably want to talk too much about it, but you sound like you're maybe a little of that fussy stage where you don't know quite what it is yet, or.
I love that your signal's breaking up a little bit. So here, only slightly and only once in a while, but it's this great cyborg sound. So it goes like, yeah. So your question was like stretched out over some beeps and stuff. It was perfect.
It's all right. It wasn't a very good one, so.
Is the question about what I'm writing?
Yeah, it's what you're writing on now. You were a little bit evasive on it, and you're kind of like, we're just kind of groping our way into it.
I'm gonna stay evasive about it because it's just, It's not, you know how long it takes, you know this, to get where you can say something intelligible, even Lucky Turtle, I'm just figuring out what to say about it, you know? So this one, no, and I don't even, I'm gonna rewind so that question goes away.
Okay,
So
enough. Okay, so let's talk about the narrative, the way this narrative moves from the past to the present.
Okay, that would, that got built in the making, right? Because as you do amazing stuff with time through generations, really, it's so admirable. This is just going from just the past, which is the 90s when she's 16, to a now, the novel present, which is around now. I tried to aim it at this actual date, like it's happening sort of now in April 2022. But so there's not a lot of in between. It's like the story's back then, and then the story is in this time frame, and both of them move forward through their own time scheme. But I didn't want to do it like, here's this story, and now here's the present. So at some point in the drafting, and some of it came quite late, and some of it with Kathy's help, my editor's help. I just thought, okay, the first part of the book kind of lands naturally right here. We're at a very dramatic point. So I just, that was all in the past. And then you turn the page and suddenly she's talking about a son. She's got a son. So just her having a son, it's very clear that we've jumped, and the son's a certain age. So it's very clear that we've jumped and approximately how far we've jumped. I just do one chapter of that, fairly short chapter first, and then back to the past for several chapters, and then up to the present, and then try to feather it in over an entire middle of the book until the present kind of takes over the time scheme. And then late in the book, there's more dramatic stuff happening both in the past and in the present. And at that point, I shift pretty much all the way to the present. But you still get information about the past. And I'm trying to say all that without any spoilers, but
I think, yeah, you avoided any spoilers. I think they work really nicely in conversation like that. And when you surprised yourself, I mean, I'm assuming you surprised yourself, or was that design when you started the second chapter and you just decided to start it in the present? That feels to me like a big taking a swing at it, like the story maybe was more linear in your head and you made a jump. I don't know. I kind of felt the jump. I felt as a reader, because it feels like one of those moments as a reader where, okay, now the author's starting to make promises,
Yeah.
Now we know there's this whole other thing. So now the author's making promises. And I always find that compelling because that keeps me reading. You know what I mean? Like, how is he going to work out? How is he going to, how is Mr. Roorbach going to align these two things? How is he going to make them conversant? Why is he giving me this information right now at the risk of slowing the momentum of the other story down? So that was, how much of that was part of your original conception, and how much of that was you and Kathy working it afterwards?
a lot of it was my original conception, but I did it a different way. And so the eventual more successful way was a result of going back and forth with Kathy, but also the result of having tried it a different way. So I kind of knew what wasn't working, and now what can I make work? So for me, it's like when you're telling a story, it's all linear, it's all in a certain time frame. There's a certain point where the fire and the juice, it's a rocket with a big tank of fuel, and at a certain point, that fuel is going to run out. And the rocket might even explode. Just when it explodes, you need to bring in the next thing. So that's what part two is like. Then that chapter just brings in the next thing. I like how you described it, like, what, it feels risky, right? But then the reader settles down, reads it, okay. And the challenge is to have that new storyline be as interesting to the reader as the past storyline. So that's something, okay, in Small World, I so admired going from narrator to narrator, different story. And each one I'd be like, oh no, I can't, I don't want to leave them. I love those. Oh, and then within a few paragraphs, I'd be like, oh my God, and it's, it's a matter of finding the interesting thing and having a new tank of rocket fuel and lighting the match to it. And just when that fuel runs out, and some sections have a little fuel and some have a lot of fuel, you figure it out. I mean, in drafting often, and in new writers' work, I work with a lot of new writers, they don't realize the rocket fuel's gone. And the rocket's just drifting back down, gravity's sucking it back down to Earth. And you realize that reading, though, when you're reading a book, you go, oh my God, I thought this book had the answers to life's problems, but oh dear, so that's the scariest thing writing is, am I carrying my readers along in this rocket ship?
I mean, you're touching on what I think is the most under talked about, most important thing about writing is the reader. I mean, I know it's unpopular in certain literary circles because it's all supposed to be authorial and the author edifying the reader. But I mean, this is a dance between the reader and the writer, and the reader's got to do everything you're doing backwards and heels. And I'm always thinking about what do I like as a reader. When I talk about the reader, I'm not picturing, the 45 to 80-year-old female demo, which is basically our demo for literary fiction, but it's just me on the other end of this thing. And you start to manage it. You start to manage your storytelling in terms of information. Like, what have I told the reader, and how can I manage all this information without sleight of hand necessarily? Sometimes you can use some trickery and manipulation, but generally speaking, how can I organize and manage and present this information in the way that's the most compelling, so that I can conserve my rocket fuel and still have that momentum. But also, I think that, and it goes back to that feeling I first felt when you switched up on me right away in the second chapter to the present, is this promise to the reader, because all of a sudden now I think we love puzzles as readers. I think a reader to feel actively involved as a reader, you want to feel like this little puzzle. And so you make that promise to me right away that, okay, I have another timeline here. So now I have a bigger picture to be putting together as I'm putting together both separate pieces. So like my conception is now manifold of this thing. And I think that's such an important lesson to writers that I think young writers get so caught up in telling the story they think they are compelled to tell. And so much of it is about really thinking about how can you tell your story in a way that's really going to involve the reader and make them feel like they own the narrative, because that's what I want, I want to make it feel like it's my experience, I don't want to smell the coffee on Bill Roorbach's breath. I want to be inside the narrative, I want to be under those Montana stars, right?
Yes, that's great. That's right. And you're putting a dream in their head and you can't wake them up. That's the game right there. And wow, there's so much that over many years you kind of learn how to do, but you learn it from watching movies, you learn it from reading books, you learn it from telling stories to friends, but it's all the same game, which is
I find watching bad movies and reading bad books is every bit as helpful as reading good ones.
This is helpful. So your rocket fuel is your story, and the rocket ship is a huge, heavy hunk of metal, which is all the background and the backstory and the settings and all that stuff. And that's what the fuel has to carry. So you can't outweigh your fuel with, anyway. So this is like turning into a craft lesson, which I love, because I know there's some writers out there.
There usually isn't, the thing about this craft lesson though, and the reason I like to talk about it when we're talking about books is because, again, the reader is part of this. This is a partnership. I mean, we're not writing in a vacuum, you know what I mean? We're writing to connect ultimately. I mean, the human experience is about being born alone and dying alone, and just this need to connect in between. And when we write a book, it's all about connecting with somebody. It's not just as simple as, hey, can you hear me? Is anybody out there? It's sharing the experience of the book and offering this experience to others and having them bring their Steinbeck used that, analogy about a book being like a wedge that he wanted to drive into somebody. So they kind of grew around it. You know what I mean? And that's how I feel about it. And if you're not thinking about the reader, then you're missing out on a really big opportunity. Hey, you got a question here. It says, hi, Bill, a love from your cousin in Wisconsin. How difficult is it to write about authentic life that expands into a whole life?
Wisconsin, that must be Martha.
Martha Coons.
Yeah, we have 36 cousins only on my mother's side, because my dad was an only child.
Somebody was busy.
Yeah, 36. Anyway, Martha's one of them, the best. What's the question?
The question is, first of all, does anyone know there's latecomers that want to come in, but they can't be admitted. I don't know how to do that. I'm not savvy enough.
That's the host, the store has to do that.
Okay, I don't know if there's anybody out there. Yeah, so the question was, and I'm reading this question, how difficult it is to write about authentic life that expands into a whole life? I'm thinking that into a fictive life, maybe?
It has to come naturally. I think at first it's so difficult. And then as you get better and better at it, then it has to come naturally. You have to believe in your person so much that while you're writing it, they're almost separate from your imagination. In fact, they are, right? The characters take on a life that it's both in control and out of control. And for
me, I'd say half the battle is just getting the hell out of my own way. You know what I mean? Just getting out of my own way. I mean, people tend to view it as such a cerebral process, writing, and even when I talk about it, it's logical, and I'm talking about managing information. But really, I mean, at the end of the day, it's really just an act of imagination, and you just gotta shed the self. I mean, this is why I write too, is just so I don't eat myself alive. You know, I mean, this is my collective unconscious. This is me getting into tune with the universe. This is me just shedding my own skin and getting rid of the shackles of self and inhabiting somebody else. And I feel like we have, like we contain multitudes, you know what I mean? It's like we were built to do this. We're meant to do this,
So someone asked today, I had another Zoom this afternoon, and someone asked if the vibe of where I was writing in a different town or place or whatever affected, how I wrote. And, that was a good question. And the answer is, at first, right, there's a different vibe and you feel different. But once you're in the story again, all of that goes away, because you are letting go of self in order to just be in a story, to dream it yourself. I think writing is so much like reading, really. It's like,
exactly. I mean, to me, they're just two ends of the different process. One takes a little longer, but like when I feel like when I'm firing on like certain books, when I think about them, I think about the writing of them or the creation more. But then a book like Small World, I felt like I just read it. You know what I mean? I felt like the story told me it was a matter of getting out of my own way. Trusting the process. That's another thing. It's just trust the process. A lot of writers suffer from this. I think we have our host is here. I think we have some people that latecomers that wanted to be admitted. And Bill and I don't know how to do that. But what was I saying? I forget.
You have some questions, I think.
Okay. Where are we? Anyway, well, sorry. Okay, we're still here, right? We're still here, Bill?
Oh, we're still here, yeah. Way here.
Yeah. No, I think we were talking about this relationship between reading and writing, and you said it. I mean, like they're just so, they're so closely connected.
I think reading is like the slowest form of, writing is like the slowest form of reading. It's just this very slow way to read. It can be a little more, I find it difficult at times. There's days when it's not working, and I've learned to just say, okay, I don't have to force myself, I'll go do something else. And I've come to trust, you have to trust the reader, and you have to trust your own instincts. So Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Yvonne.
Oh, hi, how you doing?
Good.
Good, we
I
got
didn't
you.
wanna
on
keep
screen.
coming, I didn't want to be intrusive and coming in and out, but
How's
I
our,
get to watch the video later. So did you guys say some fun things while I was gone?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's been so much fun. How, so we're good. We're gonna go till about 7, right? I'm
Yeah,
eight.
yeah. And you said you have another event today?
I had one at noon, yeah.
Okay, okay.
It was
Great. Yeah,
right
no,
in place.
we videotape this, so it'll be on the cloud, so I'll get to watch the parts that I missed.
And is there a way people can buy books, both Johnny's and mine?
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Normally, when I'm in charge of it, I mean, this is the problem. We're both in charge, so neither one of us put your link in there. I'm so sorry. Let
That's
me
all
get the link while you guys talk. Keep talking. I'm gonna put the link in. the
Yeah, I'm
chat.
not, you don't have to worry about mine. Get Bill's in here. Bill's done this for me. This is, we're selling Bill's book tonight. I've done my share of shilling. the
Okay, well,
last-
we will just put in Bill's new book. Hold on a minute. I can do that. You're gonna be so surprised. It's gonna show up just a moment in the chat.
So we've got about 4 more minutes here, right? Am I right?
Okay,
So,
yes. We'll be like one of those shopping networks where you count down
So
and we have a few more
this
minutes.
is your last
And-
chance. If you've got a burning question you want to ask, now's the time to get that into chat as we're winding up. 'cause
Yes,
we've got,
yes.
a chance.
And-
for more.
And if you want, you can even buy the book after the event is over. Let's see. Okay.
But it's not all about commerce, right, John? I mean, it's like, I just wanted to bring that up.
If it was, we'd be,
Yeah,
I mean, the reality is for every person that pays retail for one of our books, 25 people are going to read it, man. So it's like, you can't even think in those terms, you know?
and I really don't. I love that libraries buy them, and I love that. One of my favorite things is people write you letters or emails now. They write emails and say, oh, I found your book at a yard sale, and I never heard of you, but I like the cover, and it's a fan mail from a 20 years ago book or something. It's so fun.
I love it. I've gone to book clubs where you go to the book club, you drive all the way across town and you get there and they go, oh gosh, we loved it. We passed that galley around. They had one advanced reader's copy between 12 and what are you going to do? I mean, I'm going to just,
then you've got readers.
I'm going to get my payback in wine and cheese.
You've got readers, and that's really what you're after. Is just readers. That's what I'm doing it for, and what I love the most.
Somebody has a good question though. They said, Bill, what are you reading?
Oh, Ken, I
And I
am.
put the link in there. Did it show up? Sorry. There it is. From me to everyone. There's the link to order Bill's book. And you can hold it up.
Right now, I'm reading this
Oh.
Sheila Hetty book.
Yeah.
It's very strange and wonderful. I just started it, so I'll report
We had an
back.
employee book club with that to discuss that. The employees did. Yeah.
And then this one's going to take me like 5 or 6 years. I'll read like 3 pages at nap time every day until I really am 90. But I love biographies. I love biographies because we live in a culture where we don't have role models and we don't really know what to expect, or that some of our thoughts and emotions are pretty much part of the game. And this is a different kind of thing I like to read.
Oh, she's good. She's
Yeah.
Jennifer Ackerman.
You were ready for this question, dude. You got all the books on it. I hate this question. I dread this question.
You know what? I've always dreaded it when I'm at an event, out in person, because I don't have but this is my pile of books I'm reading. So
As soon as somebody asks, I forget what I'm reading or like, and then
No, you
oh
can't
my God,
remember.
you have 6 friends that wrote books in the audience and you're not reading their book.
you can't remember what you're reading.
moment.
It's so true. Why is that a hard question? But it really is hard.
Well, I have a hard question.
Okay.
When someone asks you just cold, what's your favorite book? What do you say?
My favorite book, now you've managed to ask a question that I will choke on, because I have so many favorite books that I have no idea. I have no clue what to say to that question.
Okay.
My
Okay.
favorite, one of my favorite old the old, you know, classic books might be Middlemarch. You know, I love all
Yes,
those.
I love Middlemarch.
I love the big fat books.
Yeah.
My mother used to say that she picked the fattest book she could find because when it was good, she didn't want it to end, you know. So I like those. But as far as the last, I don't know, I've just read so much and so widely, and I forget so much of it. There's some books I want to read again because I really don't remember them. Just saying Middlemarch, I'm like, I should read that again.
Right,
I remember
yeah.
it took me all summer. I remember reading it probably in college, a college summer, and it took me the entire summer because it's this fat and I had things to do. You know, there was beer to drink and bands to watch and stuff like that.
And this plays right into Steinbeck's theory that the longer it takes you to read this book, it's in you like a wedge, and your experiences sort of grow around the experience of that book. I was like,
That wedge is such a male image, you know, but I guess we'll run with it.
well, I hadn't thought of it.
And someone asked to post a link. I don't know to what, but
I think that's Lisa Casper, also a bookseller,
Lisa
from Denver, asked if we could repost the link in the choice box. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I don't know what the choice box is.
The web box?
The choice box. I think she just wants to have the link reposted in the choice box. I don't know what that means.
I put it in the chat box so that you can link on it and order it directly.
Oh,
If
I
you
get it.
click on it, you can order it.
Lisa is wise. Thank you. And she
Somebody
said,
said it's not in the chat box.
It's
Oh, you know what? Oh, this is so interesting. This says everyone in the waiting room as opposed to everyone in the chat room there. Well, that's a new one.
don't forget the waiting room.
Oh my God.
I love watching the back room of the bookstore, all those piles of boxes of books and
This is a lot of the stationery work back there.
yeah. Well,
You can walk around there and you can see all kinds of things.
which
The
branch
magic
are you?
happens.
Which branch are you in?
The Seaport branch.
Seaport branch.
yeah.
I just love that I worked so hard on that book and I got hurt and I kept going and it finally published and now there it is in a box in that back room in a bookstore in New York City and in Miami. Books and Books is a co-sponsor, and in Salt Lake City, King's
Wow.
English is a co-sponsor.
University Bookstore in Seattle.
Seattle, right near Johnny. Of
I
course,
noticed we have it in our Williamsburg store, in our Williamsburg, Brooklyn store, and in our Prince Street store.
Oh yeah, Prince Street. I used to live on West Broadway between Prince and Spring. So that's
right,
my old
yeah,
stomping ground.
right where it is.
Well, I think our time is about up and
Okay.
I think our rocket has run out of fuel. I can feel us returning back to the planet.
Almost.
The warm grip of gravity is pulling us back to Earth.
Well, when you come to the Seaport to sign your books, then bring your daughter. You can have a glass of wine at the in our cafe. If she's 21, of course.
She is 20. I think she literally is 21, maybe 22. I don't know. I'm just her father. But she's a student at NYU. Well, great to see everybody, even though I didn't really see you, but it's so good to have a chance. I mean, this is launch day and you were all with me on the day this book launched after all my travails. I so appreciate it. Johnny, thank you.
Yes, congratulations, buddy. People go out and read this book. It's really a lovely book. It's a salve, man. It's a good book.
Looks fantastic. I can't wait to read it.
Great, thank you so much. And everyone, I really love it if you write me a note when you read it, a very nice note, and I'll answer.
What's your email?
It's Bill Roorbach at Gmail.
Okay.
One word. If you want to, I have book plates. So if you're in some far corner of the country, like cousins in Wisconsin, I can sign a book plate and send that to you.
You hear that, Martha?
I'll even sport you a stamp.
Oh,
Martha Coons, there she is, my cousin. Hi. Oh my God, you look like a Burkhart. You know, didn't we do it? We made it. All right. Thank you, everyone.
congratulations.
All right,
Congratulations again.
congratulations, Bill. Go out and get it, people. Lucky Turtle.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Johnny.
love the book. Absolutely.
I'll see you in New York.
Yes, we'll all applaud now. Yay. Thank you again. Congratulations.
Thank you.